Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my take on the Machina gadget deck. This deck doesn't have any of the really expensive cards like the Therion, King Regulus. So this is pretty much budget. However, I will show you guys what I would cut to change if you want to throw those in here. But without saying all too much, let's go ahead and jump on into the deck. Starting off, of course, you run 3 copies of Makino Metal Cruncher. This card just says that if you control no monsters, you can just normal summon this card from your hand without tributing. It will lose 1000 attack, but that's not really too important when the secondary effect literally says that you can reveal 3 Earth Machine cards from your deck, and your opponent randomly adds one of those cards to your hand, which is just really powerful just to be able to get into a bunch of your different cards in the deck. So obviously you want to run 3 of this card. Continuing on, you do run 2 copies of Fortress. Fortress just says that you can discard machine-type monsters whose level equals 8 or higher, and special summon this card from your hand. You can actually discard this card as well as part of its effect, but then it also has the effect of if this card is destroyed by battle, you can target 1 card on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. This card also has an effect that says that when this face-up card is targeted by an opponent's monster effect, you can look at your opponent's hand and discard 1 card from their hand, which is just really good just to be able to rip out a hand trap or a combo piece, or just anything that your opponent wants in the hand. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Machina Citadel. This card says that it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by a card effect. Quick effect, you can target 1 machine monster you control, destroy the machine monster, and then all monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to that monster. So this card is pretty much a walking Raigeki if you want to tribute this monster, just to be able to clear all of your opponent's side of the field for their monsters, which is just really powerful. Then this card also says that if a face-up Earth Machine monster you control except Machina Citadel is destroyed by battle or card effect, while this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card. You can only use each effect once per turn. You want to pretty much see this every single time you end your turn, because this just has really good effects, just to be able to wipe your opponent's field as well as be able to bring this card back if it's in the graveyard. It's just really insane. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Makino Ruin Force. This card says that it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your graveyard by banishing machine monsters from your graveyard whose total levels equal 12 or more. This card says when your opponent activates a card effect during the battle phase, quick effect, you can pay half your life points to negate the activation, and if you do, half your opponent's life points. Practically, this card can just easily negate something like evenly matched, just anything that activates in the battle phase, which is just kind of insane. This card also says that if this card is destroyed by battle or card effects, you can special summon up to 3 of your banished Machina monsters whose total levels equals 12 or less. You can only use each effect once per turn and only once that turn. So this card is actually just really powerful, just being able to stop your opponent from activating evenly matched or just anything in the battle phase, as well as, of course, being a 3600 attack, 4100 defense, which is just really insane. So that's going to be it for the Machina monsters. Continuing on into the Infinitracks, of course, we do run 3 of the main starter of the deck. Infinitrack Harvester. This card says that if this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand, except for Harvester. This card also says that you can target 1 other machine monster you control. The levels of both of that monster and this card become the combined original levels of one of those 2 monsters. Until the end of this turn, you can only use each effect of Infinitrack Harvester once per turn. So this card is just really mainly in here so that we can, of course, search out your Infinitrack cards, as well as being able to go into your bigger Xyz monsters by targeting even a level 5 or just any of your monsters in your deck, which is just really, really insane. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Infinitrack Brutal Dozer. This card says you contribute 1 Earth Machine monster to special summon this card from your hand in defense mode. This card says that if this card is special summoned from your hand, you can special summon 1 Infinitrack monster from your deck in defense position, except Brutal Dozer, but negate its effects. Also, you cannot summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except Earth Machine monsters, which of course we don't really run that many monsters in the extra deck that aren't Earth Machine monsters, and the entire deck, of course, is machine monsters. So really, this card is just in here to be able to get you to your Trencher or even your Tunneler, which are just really good in their own rights, and I'll tell you guys what these do in just a moment. But with those, you can easily summon off another monster, link it away for the link 1 for the deck, and be able to use the other effects of, as I said, the Trencher and the Tunneler. So continuing on, as I just mentioned, we have Trencher. Trencher says you can contribute 1 machine monster to special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one level 5 or lower Infinitrack monster in your graveyard, except for Trencher, and special summon that monster to the field and defense position. So pretty much while this card is in the graveyard, it just acts as a monster born for your Infinitrack cards, which is just really powerful because there are a bunch of cards that you can bring back, like your Link monster, your Xyz monsters, or even your main deck monsters if you want to go into like Brutal Dozer or Recycle Brutal Dozer. This just allows you to do that a whole lot easier. Continuing on, we do run one copy of Infinitrack Tunnel. This card says that, of course, you contribute one Earth Machine monster to special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Then this also says that you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 5 Earth Machine monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them all into the deck, and draw 2 cards. So this is just a pot of avarice for Earth Machines by banishing this from the graveyard, and we use this a lot in the game, so that way we can actually recycle our cards, which is just really powerful and really helps in grind games. Of course, to wrap up the Infinitracks, we do run one copy of Infinitrack Anchor Drill. This card says that if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one Earth Machine monster from your hand in defense position, except Infinitrack Anchor Drill. This card also says that you can target one other Earth Machine monster you control. The levels of both that monster and this card become the combined original levels of those two monsters until the end of the turn. So that's pretty much just the secondary effect of Harvester. However, this is a level 4, which can help you get into some other really big monsters in the extra deck, and I will show you guys those, of course, later. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Super Express Bullet Train. This card just says that if all monsters you control are Earth Machines, minimum of 1, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then this card also says that during the end phase, if this card was in your graveyard, because it was sent there this turn, you can target one Earth Machine in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So practically, this card just allows you to be able to recycle your cards from graveyard by adding them back to hand. The only downside of this card is that you cannot declare attacks with this card unless you send 2 other cards you control to the graveyard. You can only use each of those other effects once per turn. So of course, this just says that you can special summon this card, and then during the end phase, you can return a card if this card is put in the graveyard, which more than likely it's going to be. Really, really powerful card. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Heavy Freight Train Derrick Crane. This card says that if an Earth Machine monster was normal special summoned to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand. But its original attack and defense become halved, so this card becomes a 1400 attack, 1000 defense monster. This card also says that you can only use this effect of Heavy Freight Train Derrick Crane once per turn. This card also says that if this card is detached from an Xyz monster and sent to the graveyard to activate that monster's effect, you can target one monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So of course this card is just really good because it is a level 10 that allows you to just summon it to the field pretty much for free by summoning another machine monster. So really don't need to go into that anymore, but it's just really powerful. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede. This card just says that this card is a normal special summon. You can target one Earth Machine monster in your graveyard to special summon it in defense position, but negate its effect. So this is just Potential Monster Reborn, but it also says that you can target one other face-up monster you control. The level of that monster in this card become the level of the other. So practically, you can target one other of your other monsters. We'll say that we have the Derrick Crane. You can use the effect of Stampede to target the Derrick Crane, and you can pick one of these levels, so you can either change Derrick Crane to a level 4, or your Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede into a level 10, so that just allows you to get another big monster on the field. Of course, as you guys can obviously tell, this deck is very Xyz reliant, so this just allows you to be able to get into level 10s much easier. We do run the 1 copy of Magical Hound. I like Magical Hound in here because it says that if this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can target one face-up spell card your opponent controls, or trap card, and return it to the hand. And if you do special summon this card, you can only use that effect once per duel. But practically, this card is a MST for the deck that just allows you to put that card back into your opponent's hand, and then you can just special summon this card for a free body on the field. To wrap up the monsters, I do run 1 copy of Ancient Gearbox, because Ancient Gearbox says that if this card is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand except by drawing it, you can add 1 Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack and or 500 defense from your deck to your hand, except for Ancient Gearbox, and you can only use that effect once per turn. So with the effect of Ancient Gearbox, you can actually search out a bunch of different cards like your Infinitrack Trencher, Tunneler, Anchor Drill, or even your Magical Hound that we just talked about. So this can just lead into any of these, which can help in grind games, of course, with Tunneler or even Trencher. And of course, if you just really need to get rid of a card your opponent controls, Magical Hound's the way to go. And then you have the Anchor Drill that you can, I guess, set up for the next turn. But honestly, out of all the options, these three, in my opinion, are the better of the three. So that's going to wrap it up for the monsters, guys. Let's go ahead and jump on into the spell cards. Of course, starting off, we do run 3 copies of Makino Redeployment. This card says that you can activate one of these effects. You can discard 1 card, then add 2 Makino monsters with different names from each other from your deck to your hand. Or if you discard 1 Makino card, you can send 2 Makino cards with different names from each other from your deck to your hand, except Makino Redeployment. So this just allows you to be able to get into your trap, as well as be a starter if you don't have any other Machinas or a dead Machina in hand. You can just search out any of the other ones. This card is really good. You can only use each effect once per turn, of course, but still really, really powerful. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Heavy Forward. Heavy Forward says that if this card is activated, you can add 1 Infinitrack monster from your deck to your hand. Then this card also says that once per turn, you can target 1 Machine Xyz monster you control, then activate one of these effects. The first effect says you can change its battle position, as well as the second effect says that you can attach this card to it as material. You can only activate 1 Heavy Forward per turn. Of course, continuing on into the spells, we do run 3 copies of Revolving Switchyard. This card says that if a level 10 Earth Machine monster is normal special summoned to your side of the field, except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. Your opponent takes no battle damage for the rest of the turn, and then you can special summon 1 level 4 Machine monster with 1800 attack or more from your deck, and if you do, it becomes level 10. So, of course, one of the best cards that we actually do run for this is, of course, to summon out the Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede, because this can just become the level of any other monster you control, as well as it just becomes level 10 due to the field spell, in case you didn't have a level 10 on field already. Of course, this card does have another effect that says you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 level 10 Earth Machine monster from your deck to your hand. So practically, you can special summon out Stampede, and then you can activate the other effect to send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to either add your Derrick Crane or your Express Bullet Train. Moving on from that, we are going to be playing 2 copies of Urgent Schedule. This card says that if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine monster from your deck in defense position, but negate its effects. You cannot declare attacks the turn you activate this card, except with Machine monsters, which of course, as you guys already know, we're already only running Machine monsters. But this card also says that if this set card was sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 level 10 Machine monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this card is just really good, especially if you're going second, just so that we can pop this off and just be able to summon out a bunch of monsters onto your side of the field for pretty much free. But that's going to be it for the spell cards, guys. Moving on into the traps, we do run 2 copies of Makino Overdrive. This card says you can target 1 Machine monster you control to special summon 1 Makino monster with a different name from your hand or deck, and if you do, destroy that targeted monster. So of course you can pair this with your copy of Machina Citadel if this card is in the graveyard, because this just allows you to destroy a monster on the field to be able to trigger the effect of this to special summon itself, and of course it'll give you another monster. However, there is a secondary effect with Makino Overdrive, which does help a lot in grind games. This just says that if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it, then target 3 of your Machine monsters that are banished, and or in your graveyard to shuffle them into your deck, and then draw 1 card. So, as I said, you can of course use this with Tunneler, because Tunneler of course just says that you can shuffle back 5 Earth Machines and then draw 2 cards. This just says that you can target 3 machines, banished or engrave, including targeting the Tunneler itself, so that way you can keep recycling Tunneler to keep recycling everything else. Not else really to go into it with Makino Overdrive, but this card is really powerful. You could run a third, however, I think that 2 works just fine. Then, of course, to wrap up the trap cards, as well as the deck, I do run 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Only reason why I run Torrential Tribute is because this does destroy the cards on both players' side of the field, so if you destroy an Earth Machine while Citadel's engraved, you can just summon it back, and it's pretty much free at that point. So that's going to be it for the main deck, guys. Moving on into the extra deck, of course, we do run 2 copies of Infinitrack Riverstormer. This card says that when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as a material. The other effect says that you can only use each of the following effects once per turn, but the first effect of that says that you can detach one material from this card, take one Earth Machine monster from your deck, and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. This card also says that if this card is in your graveyard, you can contribute one Machine Link monster to special summon this card in defense position. Just a really, really powerful card if you wanted to be able to loop all your materials with this thing just by bringing it back out. Of course, we will go over the Link 1 in just a minute, however, pairing this with the Link 1 is just really, really powerful. Continuing on, we do run one copy of Infinitrack Earth Slicer. Earth Slicer just says that when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can attach that monster to this card as a material. This card, of course, just like the Infinitrack River Stormer, says that you can only use each of the following effects of Infinitrack Earth Slicer once per turn. The first effect says that you can detach any number of materials from this card and then target that many cards on the field and destroy them. This card also says that if this card is in your graveyard, you can contribute one Machine Link monster to special summon this card in defense position. So just like River Stormer, it can bring itself back out. However, River Stormer just being able to detach a material from the card just to be able to search any Earth Machine is just a little bit better. However, Earth Slicer is just there to get rid of pesky cards that are otherwise much more difficult to get rid of. Continuing on, we do run two copies of number 81, Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora. This card says that once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, then target one face-up monster on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects, except for its own effects until the end of this turn. So, of course, the main thing is you want to be able to summon this in defense position because it is a 4,000 defense monster. Activate its effect, targeting itself, and now your opponent can't really just start swinging for game, which is just really powerful. Then, of course, we do run one copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. This card says that once per turn, you can detach one material from this card to inflict 2,000 points of damage to your opponent. So this card is actually just mainly used in game 3s, or if you just need to push for just a little bit of extra damage. But you can just easily activate this effect to burn your opponent for 2,000, and if it's game 3 and you're going into time, you definitely want to summon this to burn your opponent, so that way you win that game. Continuing on, we do run one copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Lieb. This card says that once per turn, you can also Xyz summon Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Lieb by using one rank 10 Xyz monster you control as a material. And of course, its materials become this card's materials, which is just really powerful. And this card says that once per turn, you can detach one material from this card against 2,000 attack and defense for the rest of this turn, and you can only declare attacks with this card. So this card is just really here so that we can get over your opponent's big monsters that are otherwise destroyable by card effect by boosting this up to 6,000 attack, 6,000 defense, and then just start swinging. This card can make attacks on monsters up to the number of materials on it +1. So if you have, let's say, 3 materials on this card, it can attack 4 times, and I don't think many opponents are going to be able to stop this that easily. So just having this as your OTK part of the deck is just really, really powerful. Then, of course, we do run one copy of Sky Palace Gengen Red-Eye. I hope I pronounced that right. Probably not, but we'll see. But this card says that you can detach one Xyz material from this card and target one card your opponent controls to destroy that target. And if you do, inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. So, of course, this card, just like your copy of Gustav Max, can burn your opponent during like game 3 or just if you need to push for a little bit of extra damage. And of course, you can only use this card once per turn, and it cannot attack the turn you activated its effect. Continuing on, we do run one copy of Phantom Fortress Interblavnir. This card says that once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then activate one of these following effects. The first effect says that you can banish one card your opponent controls. The second effect says you can banish one random card from your opponent's hand. The third effect says that you can banish one card from your opponent's graveyard. And then the fourth effect says you can banish the top card of your opponent's deck face up. So, of course, one of my main reasons why I like this card is that it does not target, which is just really powerful. It was really difficult for me to decide if I wanted to either run this or a copy of Dingirsu. I like the Dingirsu because it has the effect to just send one card your opponent controls to the graveyard. However, I think that in today's day and age with Interblavnir, just being able to banish one card for pretty much free without targeting is just really, really powerful. Then, of course, to wrap up the Xyz monsters, I do run one copy of Double A Zeus Sky Thunder because you are running a Xyz deck. So just having this in here just to be able to clear fields is pretty insane. And of course, with a card in the deck like your Juggernaut Lieb, just being able to put a bunch of materials under this by, let's say, going into For this, we'll just do Super Dora into Lieb, and you have 2 other materials, and then you can just go into Sky Thunder after attacking with Lieb, just to be able to clear out any other cards that your opponent has, while having, of course, the 2 other materials, which is just really, really cool with this deck, that we can set up a multiple use double Zeus Sky Thunder. Moving on into the links, we do run, as I said, the 3 copies of Infinitrack Goliath. Now, this is the link 1 that allows you to do just a lot of crazy stuff with this deck. This card says that if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 Xyz monster you control, attach this card to that monster as a material. This card says as well that you can only use that effect once per turn, but any Xyz monster whose original type is machine and has this card as a material against the effect that this card cannot be destroyed by battle. So if, of course, you had Goliath and you went into your copy of Riverstormer by using your... by tributing off the Goliath on field to summon back the Riverstormer, you can immediately attach the Goliath, making your Riverstormer very difficult to get over. Of course, continuing on with the links, we do run 1 copy of Ancient Gear Ballista. Ancient Gear Ballista says that this card is link summoned. You can add 1 Ancient Gear monster or 1 Gear Town from your deck to your hand. So of course that is mainly just used to search out your copy of Box, to be able to search out any of your other monsters with 500 attack or defense. This card also says that you can target 1 spell trap card you control and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls to destroy that card you control, and if you do, change that opponent's monster's attack and defense to 0 until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn, so of course this is one of the main things that you want to go into, just to be able to get your box to be able to go into a lot of other crazy cards. And then we do run 1 copy of Double-Headed Anger Knuckle. This card says that it cannot be used as link material. You can only use 1 of the following effects of Double-Headed Anger Knuckle per turn, and only once that turn. The first effect says that during the main phase quick effect, you can send 1 monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, and target 1 level 10 Earth Machine monster in the graveyard, and special summon it in defense position but negate its effect. The second effect of this card says that if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. So of course this is just one of your loopable cards in the deck, so that way you can make a bunch of advantage, as well as of course just recur a bunch of other things with this. So it's just really good. Used to, I would run 2 copies of this card, however I think that 1 is just fine right now. Unless you're afraid of Cashier, then you can just run the 2nd copy. But really that's going to be about it for the extra deck. As I said, I'm not running the Therion, King Regulus or anything. However, if I were, I would probably just cut the Torrential Tributes. Yes, I think that the Torrential Tributes are really good. However, you could always just side deck this. But I would definitely run 2 copies of the Regulus and 1 copy of this Colosseum. But with that being said, there's not really anything else that I would change for this deck. I really like the list, the way that it is. But really, that's gonna be about it for the video, guys. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like. Comment down below what you guys think of the deck, as well as what you guys would change to make it even better. Of course, be sure to go down into the description and check out my Twitter, where I try to keep posted pretty frequently for you guys. But yeah, as I said, that's gonna be about it. See ya.